Hey everyone, it's Lisa Chastain, your host of Real Money. I am here with my guest, Donna Cates. I cannot wait for you to hear her story today. Before we do that though, let me share with you the transition that I've made on the show. I'm no longer on Voice America. This is my own production of Real Money, and I'm so excited to take this show to the next level with you, my listener, my viewer, my audience. This is a really heartfelt conversation today. We are diving into, even though we've had conversations about divorce on this show, Donna's going to provide her insight and her knowledge and her expertise. So if you are a woman who is thinking about divorce, on the verge of divorce, who is married, who may not even be thinking about divorce, this show is for you. I went through a divorce in 2017, and I will say that for me, it was one of the most challenging, darkest times of my life. And because of my divorce, I am the woman that I am today. So, divorce is not a dirty word. And I believe that you're going to hear from Donna today and be inspired today. And you're going to leave this show, wherever you leave the show off, feeling inspired and hopeful about your life, your future, and your finances. That's my goal. You ready, Donna?
I am excited to be here with you.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so here's the deal. I don't do formal introductions. I'm going to let you introduce yourself. Can you share with the audience who you are, and
Yeah.
then we'll take it from there?
Okay, awesome. Well, my name is Donna Cates, and I just started my own firm after working for a full service brokerage firm for a long time. So I am a wealth builder, a certified divorce financial analyst, and a divorce financial mediator. And my role, as I have proclaimed it, is that I help women make smart choices about their money because a man is not a financial plan. And that's my goal, is to make sure that all of us women are empowered to make smart choices.
I love that so much. A man is not a financial plan. That hit someone, that landed with someone.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and the reality is, we grow up with this Cinderella thing where we're looking for, the Mr. Right, and he's going to take care of me. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that dream. But what I have found over the course of my career is that so many women, once they get in a long-term relationship, they just give up all control, or involvement in money stuff. So they end up being behind the eight ball. They
Yeah.
really are not as aware as they need to be when it comes to money and their investments.
Yeah, I hear you on that. And I have women that come to me, and I know you have women that come to you who are ready to change that framework in their lives. So before we dive into all the amazingness that you have to offer our audience today, my audience today, let's talk about you. And I love sharing the stories of all of my guests on this show, because even though you have all of this financial acumen, that wasn't always the case. And you have your own story, which you just shared at my friend Jess Weaver's Pink Fix Day last week, May
Mhm.
17th. But let's take a dive back, because part of the reason, and I know you said this before the show with me, that you are an expert is that you've been through some things. You
Mhm.
don't just know some things, you've been through some things. So let's talk about where you grew up.
Okay,
Where'd you grow
awesome.
up?
Okay, I grew up in Atlanta, Georgia,
Yeah.
and now I've been in Birmingham, Alabama for almost 29 years now.
Yeah. I was telling Donna before the show, it's like a piece of home talking to Donna, because my dad's from Atlanta and my family lives in Birmingham. So anyway, I'm so grateful for that. What was life like for you growing up in Atlanta?
I had the idyllic childhood. Both of my parents were very middle class. Both my parents worked. We had a strong work ethic. We learned, early on. We had tons of responsibilities, the chores and stuff, and
Hmm.
without getting paid for them, we just did them because we were supposed to. But we never lacked for anything. But my parents worked really hard for us to have everything that we needed and then some. So I felt privileged, and I think a lot of times I didn't realize until later how fortunate I was that my parents, because I didn't realize they were making sacrifices,
Mm,
that they were making sacrifices for me and my younger brother so that we could do things like, band and all of the trips and just the cool stuff. So
yeah. So gratitude now, what was your life with money back then? What did you know about money growing up? You knew your parents worked hard. I heard you say that. What else?
I believe I understood the fact that I was responsible for earning money for the things that I wanted to do.
Yeah.
They covered a lot of things for me, but I had to earn money to do the other stuff. So if there was anything I wanted extra, I didn't ask them for money. I went out and earned it myself. That was a big lesson. The second lesson was that my mom was very frugal. She grew up in a very different situation, without a whole lot and having to share with a ton of siblings. And she was very, very frugal. So she wasn't one to just go out and buy like a lot of us do today. We go, ooh, I see that. I want it. I got to have it now. I'll
Yeah.
figure out how to pay for it later. She was not that person. She would, she had some discipline about around her spending. So that created, initially I kind of rebelled against that. I was like, it's my money. I'm going to spend it how I want to. But I came around to understanding her logic, and it made sense. And I said, okay, I can do this. I can be a little bit more conscious about the financial choices I make.
When did that happen for you? What age?
About 25, 26 years old, which coincides with that first life event.
Yeah, we can lean in there. So through when I think I'm hearing you say, I don't want to put words in your mouth, is that your teenage years there was some frivolousness, which how many teenagers does that happen, right? And learnings and lessons. Did you go to college?
I did.
Yeah, in Atlanta. Where'd you go to
I did.
college?
I went to Georgia State, so I was
Okay.
downtown. So, unlike a lot of my friends who are going off to school and staying on campus, I stayed home and just commuted downtown. But it was perfect. It's exactly what I needed and appreciated.
Gotcha. And what'd you study in college?
I was actually a business major with a psychology minor.
Cool. Very
Hmm.
cool. Okay. And then what happened at 25? What'd you say,
Well,
25, 26?
yeah,
Okay.
that's when the change happened. I got married straight out of college, um, and I don't even know why I didn't wait until I was finished with college, but I didn't. So this is an interesting thing. My college degree has my old married name on it. It doesn't even have my maiden name on it because I couldn't wait one more quarter to get married. And that was one of my rebellious things because my parents wanted me to, but I
Mm,
didn't. So basically, I got married young, um, and I thought we were happy. And I found out coming home from work one day, this is kind of part of my story that makes me where I can say to anybody I talk to today, I know what you're going through. I
hmm
literally was driving home from work on a Friday afternoon to go home and tell my husband that I think I might be pregnant.
hmm
And, stopped and bought the pregnancy test and was just, I wasn't sure. I was just running a little late. And I thought, maybe we hadn't really talked about it, hadn't planned on it. We knew we'd have kids, but that's just it. So, but I got home and said, "Oh, honey, I've got some news to share with you. I think, I'm not sure yet." And he goes, "I've got some news to share with you too." And that news was that he no longer wanted to be married. And of course, I went into a tailspin of, oh my God, if I'm pregnant, how am I going to do this on my own? Nobody in our family's ever been divorced. I mean, I'm the golden child. I'm the first to go to college. I can't be the first to get divorced, and all of
Wow.
those negative things. So it was a lot of panic, a lot of emotions, a lot of fear. Um, and then I just kind of went into hyper safety mode. And that was that first shift. And that's where I started appreciating the need to be frugal because I
Mm.
literally was on my own again.
How old were you? How long did the marriage last?
The marriage was not quite 2 years, and
Okay.
I was 26 at the time of my divorce.
Were you pregnant?
No, I was not pregnant.
Okay. The good Lord knows what he's doing.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So you're divorced at 26. That must have felt like a whirlwind.
It was. It definitely was.
And divorce is not something that happens in my family either. It was not a conversation that anyone wanted to have in my family. How did that impact you?
I was so humiliated. I mean, because and I'm not bragging, I'm just claiming what it was. I was always very popular and a leader and, but someone that made things happen and, had great friends at work and everything. And I mean, I went into work and I could not cry. And I was so humiliated because I couldn't control my emotions. And here I am crying in front of these professional people that have hired me, just out of college. And I'm going, oh, what kind of impression is this making? So it was devastating for me. It put me in a place where I didn't know who to trust. I didn't want to trust anybody. Yeah, I was a hot mess there for a while.
Wow. Wow. So many women can relate to that, Donna. Thank you for sharing that.
You're
And that wasn't you weren't expecting that. It sounds like you were planning on staying married.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So how did you get through that? So you became frugal, you were out on your own. Were you living at home through college?
I did live home through college. So when I married,
Yeah.
that's the first time I had lived away from home.
Right. So you moved out with your husband. Now you're single again. What shifted in your life? What action steps did you take at the age of 26? Were you living on your own again or did you move home?
I did move home for a
Okay.
temporary period and then thought that I needed to be an adult and get back out on my own. So I did that. And the thing that did not happen right away was me doing some digging into the why that relationship might not have worked. I just started going out and having a good time and dating and working hard and
Mm-hmm.
traveling some for business. I was just living life. I was just like, okay, what's coming? I'm ready for anything. I guess my next big lesson came in my next relationship. And that's when I discovered that, there might be some things that I needed to work on for myself to improve, the types of relationships that I was attracting.
Oh my gosh. Our relationships, I teach this in my world, and I'm sure you do too, is that our relationships are so intertwined with our relationship with money.
And people don't realize that.
You don't think about it that way. You think about your money's on one side over here in your life, your relationships are over here. And for women in particular, which is I know what this is the mission that you're on, which we'll share in a little bit, is that you have to have the right relationship to have the right relationship with money too.
Correct.
First the right relationship with yourself,
Mhm.
and then looking at how that relationship with other people is interacting with you and your relationship with money. It's so important for the listener. That's like the first takeaway, the first nugget is regardless of whether or not you're in a relationship, it is so important that you acknowledge your own relationship with yourself and then your relationship with money because you have one whether you realize it or not. Yeah.
Absolutely. We can't do anything in this world without money.
Sad but true.
Mhm.
That's true. So let's talk about this thread then. So in your first marriage to your second relationship, you learned some things. You shifted some things financially. You were living life and also being frugal at the same time. What was your relationship like with money in your 20s? Were you saving a lot? Did you know anything? I know you're a financial advisor now, but what did you know about money? Did you have anybody sit down and talk to you about a 401k or any of that in your 20s?
Well, the fortunate thing is that as I mentioned, my mom was very frugal.
Yeah.
So she was always saying, do you really need that? Or let's think about this. So she kind of set the tone for not jumping into things. But like I said, I kind of had my little bit of wild hair with the spending. But then when I started working, one of my first supervisors said, hey, we need to talk about this thing called a 401k. And I'm going, a 40 what? And yeah, and you want me to put money into it? I mean, I just started getting a paycheck, but I was very fortunate because he literally guided me and had me start funding the retirement account through my
Mm-hmm.
employer. And that was huge because at that time I thought, there's no way I can afford to do this. And
Hmm.
then I won't have money to spend on beer and pizza, right? So,
Right.
and that was, the trade-off. So, but he gave me that grounding and educated me on the benefits that were available, and that's where I kind of started that process and started my own savings. And of course, I wish I'd started at 18, but starting at 26 isn't too bad. So it's good.
Yeah. You started. That's the point.
Right.
Um, so where were you working? What were you doing for work at that time?
I worked for the U.S. Army. I was not in the military, but I was a civilian employee working for an organization doing what we refer to as budget and manpower analysis. So I was kind of the number cruncher, managing big budgets and helping these different organizations understand what they needed in order to accomplish the things that they were tasked to do by the government, and making sure the money was allocated and then used appropriately.
That's so cool.
It was cool.
That's so cool. Yeah. Have you always been good with numbers?
Uh, Actually, no, it's not my forte.
Mine
It's
neither.
not the one that is. I don't love it. I do it because I need to, but I don't love it.
Two financial experts on this podcast right now, just telling you, you do not have to be good with numbers to be good with money.
That's right. Absolutely.
That's right. And so you're in this career, and here comes boyfriend, man number two in your life.
Right.
What happened in that? Now I'm threading this through just to tee the audience up because you and I talked a little bit about this before the show, but I want the audience to understand for themselves. I really want my listeners to be able to hear through your story, make some connections and parallels to their own lives. So there
Perfect.
were some things that weren't working in the first marriage.
Right.
You get into a second relationship. Walk us down that path.
Okay. So I got into this relationship. We had very good chemistry, enjoyed spending time with this person. He had been married, he had kids. I knew all of this. And I didn't spend any time with his family. It was just he and I. And he actually was in the military, so he was asked to relocate, as they often do, his next tour of duty, and he asked me to come with him. So we had gotten engaged, and that kind of shocked a lot of the people that I was working with, because everybody that I worked with knew who this person was. And maybe they knew more about his situation than I did, which is kind of interesting. And that was kind of me putting my head in the sand. But we elected for me to move with him to his new tour of duty. So that meant me changing jobs, taking a pay cut to get a job where he was, leaving my friends and family and everything that I knew, the safety of my sweet Georgia home,
Mm-hmm.
and so I went off and thought everything was going to be absolutely wonderful. But it was just a few months after I was there that I did come to the conclusion that he was never divorced. So that was beyond devastating. The other thing is that he was a functioning alcoholic. I'd never been around alcohol that much. Yeah, partying, going out, that kind of thing. But he was a functioning alcoholic, so it made it very difficult. And me being away from the people that know and love me, it was hard. It was very, and I was
Mm.
very codependent. Um, so it was kind of a back and forth. I would say, "Hey, I moved out. I just left the living situation I was with him, went out on my own, but then invited him back
Mm-hmm.
again and again and again."
How old were you?
I'm sorry,
How old were you? How young were you?
28-ish.
That happened pretty fast.
Yes. So, and that to me was the turning point in my life. It could have not been. I could have kept my head in the sand, and that's what a lot of people do, and why I'm so passionate about the work that I do and that you do. So I elected, once I got out of that situation, moved back home and back to Atlanta, that is.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, okay, I had to call in some favors to get my old job back. It was literally the perfect opportunity because we were creating, not we, the US government was creating a new entire headquarters for Army reservists. And there was a place for me in that planning group. So I was on the
Mm.
ground floor, working more as an underling, but still, at the table. But a great career opportunity for me. So it opened that up and it gave me the space to say, okay, Donna, some crazy things have happened. You're way too dependent, codependent. You've got some issues. We need to figure out what's going on with you, what's going on with me, so that I can take better care of myself and be in better relationships. So I did the work. I did the work. I thought I'd hit rock bottom and just felt like, oh my gosh. Um, I never got to the place where I didn't want to live, but it was a really hard time. But because I was able to go through all of that, it literally put me in a mental state where I could be open to not expecting anything from anybody and knowing that I have me to count on. And that included my parents. They wanted everything for me and wanted to take care of me. And I appreciate that. And they do. They always have taken care of me. But that was the pivotal moment for me to know that, no, Donna, it's you. You're the one that has to be responsible and make decisions for yourself. And that's what I did. And the amazing part of that story, and I'm getting goosebumps just saying it, and I do every freaking time I talk about it, is that it opened up the door for me to reconnect with a high school sweetheart. And I even say high school sweetheart lightly because he was more the boy next door that loved me to pieces, but I didn't love to pieces because he was the boy next door.
Yeah.
But he was the one the entire time. And when we reconnected, we just picked up where we left off. And my mama was going, I told you so. This is
She
what I tried
knows.
to tell you, right? She tried to tell me, but I was not in the space of listening. I had to do it my way. But I feel that that was a gift from God, for me to connect. And the biggest thing is that now we're in our early 30s, and he has not married. I'm going, okay, okay, this is good. This is a good sign. So,
Hmm.
but
Can
then,
we take a step back to the work?
yes,
Every guest, not every guest, but most guests that I've had on the show in one way or another say this without prompting, without me leading you in a certain direction. And they all say that in order to transform their life, to move in a different direction, they had to do the work. Can you share what the work really meant for you? For example, some people, they go to therapy. For
mhm.
me, I really went headfirst into some personal development programs and really focused on myself. And I had to acknowledge within myself what wasn't working. What was the work like for you, and what were the ahas?
Okay. So I think the first thing, um, I'm an avid reader, so I automatically started getting all of the self-help books, and I would read them. And what I found is that I would learn a lot from reading the self-help books. I would say, "Ooh, that sounds just like me," or "Oh, I've been down that path," and I was so relating to everything. But the thing is, Lisa, I would get to the end of the book and set it aside and then
Mm-hmm.
pick up the next book and not do anything any differently. So
Mm-hmm.
that's when I decided that I needed, to be in therapy. I needed somebody else to have a conversation with about the things that I was learning and discovering about myself, and just a sounding board on what to do with that information. So I was, in therapy for some time, and actually determined that, I, I literally was clinically depressed.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had to go on medication, and I'm still on that medication today because I have a chemical imbalance. So it's a chemical imbalance that predisposes me to depression. And that's just a rabbit hole that's easy to go down. So what I learned in my aha moments were that, okay, well, it wasn't all me. My body is wired to automatically go that way. Um, and most people would never know that I'm not a glass is full, not half full, not half empty. I'm not sure I said that right, but you know what.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
but I always automatically go to the negative, and even today, what makes my husband upset is like, oh, you poo on everything, right? So I'm the poo pooer, but I am more that for me was the opening for me to learn how to be more grateful, to recognize the things that I had to be grateful for and to focus on those things versus the negative things, and learning the fact that I literally had codependent relationships. It wasn't just with that gentleman. It wasn't just with the man that I married first. It was basically with most everyone. So I literally started going to Codependence Anonymous, just the codependency group like the AA, and got a lot of help through that process as well.
Wow.
Mhm.
This is the first time I've heard about this. I mean, not the idea or thought of codependency, but that there's actually outreach groups out there.
There are.
When it comes to codependency, do you know what the belief was about yourself that had you form codependent relationships?
I always felt like, in spite of everybody telling me otherwise, that I was never good enough and that I needed to make people happy. If I could be the people pleaser and make people happy, they would love me and pay attention to me.
Mm-hmm.
So it was, that's my job. I grew up as Miss Susie Sunshine. My role was to make everybody happy,
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't know it was a job for the first 30 years of my life, but that's the one
Yeah.
that I had taken on.
Yeah. That's really powerful. I
Hmm.
can see the emotion as we're talking through these different parts of
Hmm.
your life. I know that that's not easy to share. And I'm really, really grateful that you've had the courage to share and that you continue to share your story because that's how we help others
Right.
hear one, that they're not alone, they're okay. And now, as we switch over to this conversation about how you help people for a living today, there's so many things that you can do to transform your life and transform your relationship with money. I can only imagine in your 20s the highs and lows that you had financially that went along with that journey. And so many women will get into relationships and vote themselves second or last on the bus. And it sounds like in that second relationship, you took a lower paying job, you moved away from family, you did a lot to put yourself on the back seat for that relationship. And as a result, you learned so many things about yourself and you've been able to say, hey, I came through it.
Yes.
I came through it.
I came through
And
much
you didn't,
stronger.
right. And you didn't continue to repeat the pattern.
Hmm.
And for you listening, that is the point of our lives is that we learn, we have these beliefs. Donna, you had a good childhood. Like there was nothing traumatic and still there were beliefs that were formed, and we all do that. We all form these beliefs about our role in life, who we're supposed to be in life. For me, I was the student body president and homecoming queen in high school, and then I got voted, I think, either like most popular or most likely to succeed or something. And people might on the outside look in and go, "Wow, that's like, was that you too?
Hmm.
You're putting your thumbs up. That was you
I
too."
wasn't homecoming queen, but I was leadership. I was the senior president. Um, yeah, and most likely to succeed. Mhm.
Yeah. So here's the thing for me, what I made up about myself was that I cannot be and I will not be that person at the 10-year reunion or 20-year reunion. Because you watch movies and society tells you that my belief was people were just waiting for me to fuck up.
Right. Hmm.
People were just waiting for me to mess up. And I sure proved them all right. And I sure did. But also I had this like perfect persona that people I thought that I had to be perfect and it crushed me. it crushed me because I did all of the right things, I thought, in my 20s. And you know my story. I fell apart in my 30s. I couldn't hold it together anymore. And I'm so grateful for the lessons in my 30s, and I had the courage to do the work so that I can have the life that I have today. And I didn't know that about you.
Mhm.
I'm so glad we're having this conversation. Okay, so you meet your, go ahead. What were you going to say?
I was just going to say, and what you just said is so important because when we're judging people or making assumptions about people, we have to understand that we only know what we're seeing, right? We can't know all of the behind the scenes stuff. So
Hmm.
that's something that I find very important in my work is I'm never making assumptions about where you're coming from or where you've been. So that's it's up to you to share that story with me as it's appropriate, and then we
Hmm.
can work with that moving forward.
The vulnerability in this work is so important, especially in the world of money. People don't want to let their guards down. You know, we want to on the outside, we want for people to see us successfully. And when it comes to money, and we're going to transition talking about the work that you do, is you can know that Donna is a safe person, right? By sharing your story, they hear that, and that we want you to feel safe enough to say, hey, whatever is going on right now, there are safe people that you can talk to. Because in the financial world, it's very easy on the outside looking in to judge someone by the car that they're driving or the watch that they wear or the house that they live in. And story after story after story on this show of women financial professionals too saying, hey, we don't always have it all figured out. Yeah. So you left the army, working for the army, and now you're fine. Did you just make that jump immediately over to the financial world? What was that transition like?
The transition was when I actually ended up marrying my high school sweetheart. He was in Alabama and I was in Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
So I was leaving the military there in Atlanta, and there wasn't a big military presence in Birmingham, where I was moving to. So I decided to start doing some direct marketing. Um, um, yeah, the multi-level stuff, and I did very, very well at that. But it's kind of like I'm moving to a state I know nobody but my new husband and a couple of his college buddies. So what the heck am I going to do? So I bought cold leads for stay-at-home moms. These would be women who had just had babies, so I knew they'd be home. So when I called them to market my stuff, I'd get somebody. So I did that, and I actually ended up being pretty good at it. Made a decent living and all. So I did that for a while.
What did you sell?
And I was a Mary Kay sales
Yeah.
director.
That's so awesome. Okay.
Pink cars and pink jars. That was all.
Yes.
So I did that, but I came to a place where um, I was running a networking organization. I was one of the chapter presidents, and I had somebody that I had invited. He was my financial advisor. I invited him to come to this networking group, and he just out of the blue said, "Have you ever thought about doing what I'm doing?" And I was like, "You got to be kidding. No, why? What?"
Mm-hmm.
And he said, and he was the one that said to me, "Well, with your personality and your ability to connect with people and just your passion, I think you'd be good at this. I mean, you can sell makeup like you can sell anything, right?"
Mm-hmm.
So, and it was just at that point, because if he had said that to me 6 months earlier, I would have had absolutely no interest. But it was at a place where I was going, is what I'm doing what I want to continue to do, or am I ready for something different? And it was because of that timing that I took that interview. And that's when I went to work, and got all my tests and passed. So I was employable as a financial advisor. Wasn't
That's
anything I
really
was
cool.
seeking. It was just, it presented itself.
That's usually how it happens in the financial world, honestly. Like,
Mhm.
I was a college advisor for years and years, and that was not a career people chose,
Right. Hmm.
right? And so, financial advice at that time in your career, were you in your 30s still?
Yes. Uh huh.
Okay. And what did financial advising mean to you or look like to you in the front end of your career?
At the very front, I was looking at it solely from a how am I going to make a living from this? And oh my gosh, I'm going to be helping people make decisions about how to invest their money and what if they lose it. And when I got started in 2000, we had that big market crash,
Mm-hmm.
the tech bubble. Um, so my approach when talking with people is everybody was in such stress because of the market crash at that point. And my thing was I need to help them understand what the reality is so that they know what that market crash means to them so that they could then in turn make smart choices about whether to stay in the market, to get out of the market and make their losses real, or to come up with a better plan. So that's where I kind of felt the my opportunity to do more educating came through. And it's interesting because that I was never I was a good presenter, but I never viewed myself as an educator.
Mm-hmm.
But at that point I said I need to get in front of people. I'm going to start doing seminars, and if I educate people on what they need to know, the ones that are interested will present themselves. So I'm not having to go out and beg somebody to work with me. Those that need my help will present themselves, and then I can go to work with them.
Yeah.
And that's when it's funny because that back then, literally, I'm dating myself now. It literally was the old man's club.
Mm-hmm.
Women at that time only made up 8% of the financial advisor world in the U.S. It's grown to 18% now, but at that time, I was a novelty, and I was also told that seminars don't work.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of showed them that that's not the case. You have to get the right people in front of you. You have to provide the right type of education, the right call to action, and then you have to have the follow up. You have to be willing to connect with people and stay in front of them so that they don't forget that you're there to help them.
That's
So
true.
I did that, and I said, "Yeah, don't tell me I can't do that." But
Yeah.
the seminars,
Yeah. Do it the way you want to do it, Donna,
that's
right?
it.
You're
Absolutely
going to do it your way anyway. Yeah, and we met, full transparency, you and I met through education and coaching through Robin Crane's world
right.
because I believe women make better financial advisors, and there's a lot of articles out there about this, that we make better financial advisors and better financial support systems because of that relational component. We do care. We do want to have a relationship, and I know that you're making a difference in that way exactly today in your practice.
Right.
Why? So I want to use this part of the show, which we're winding down to the end of the show. I really want to lean into divorce. You've had your own experiences with codependency, divorce, finding out that someone was still married, which, as you know, in the money as a money coach, I get all kinds of secrets. I hear all kinds of secrets, and that must have been a huge blow.
It
And then
was.
you're like, how did I not know? But knowing what you do know now, let's talk to our listeners about what they need to know. What are those two or three things where you're like, hey, if you could grab someone by the shoulders and shake them, these are the things that you've got to know going into divorce or about relationships and money. What is it that you want our listeners to know today?
I want to say that even if you are the person in the relationship that is not managing the money and making the big decisions about how the money's being spent or saved or invested or whatever, that you must have an understanding of what your financial household looks like. And if you are married to someone who is not willing to share that information with you, I would say that's a red flag.
Red flag.
It is definitely a red flag because anybody that is part of a marriage is entitled to understand the financial well-being of the household. And it's, I often say it's not an if we're going to be on our own, but a when, because 50% of marriages end in divorce, 60% of second marriages end, and then women outlive men. So at some point, whether you'd like to do the money stuff or not, you are going to have to pick up the money pieces. And wouldn't it be so much more comfortable for you to at least know what there is, where to find it, who to call, so that when life does happen, you're in a better place? Because I can tell you, death and divorce, you are going to be an emotional basket case, and that is not the ideal time to be figuring stuff out.
Yeah.
So that's tip number one, is you
Yep.
got to understand your financial household.
Can you explain what that means specifically? A lot of my listeners don't know where to look. A lot of them don't even know how to calculate their net worth. So, what does your financial household mean?
Okay, perfect question. So, net worth, that's the overall term that says if we take all of the things that we own, everything from our house, our 401k, our pension income, our savings accounts, our college savings accounts, all of the money stuff, the value of our home, our cars, all of our big boy toys, whatever those things are of value. We have an art collection that would fall into the net worth. But you take that big number and you subtract out any debt that you owe. So we've got a house, but we also have a mortgage on the house. So even though the house might be worth 700,000, if we've got a $200,000 mortgage, that reduces the value because I don't really own all of it yet.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, when you're looking for your net worth number, it's identifying everything that has value in your household and subtracting out the debt that you own. So that's the first piece. And then the second piece is understanding the different types of assets that you have. And this is a question that I posed in my presentation I just did the other day. So, is your husband saving into a retirement account at work? Do you know where it is or how much it is? Heck, do you even know how much is in your 401k
Mm-hmm.
or your IRA? How much do you keep in your savings account? Do you have a home equity line on your home? Has it been used? I had someone that get divorced and they did not do any discovery on the outstanding debt. The woman elected to keep the house. It was her retirement house baby, and she wasn't going to let go of it. I can afford the mortgage. I'm going to keep it. But she found out after the fact that even though she could afford the mortgage, she could not afford the maintenance of the home.
Mm.
So she was immediately looking to sell the home. And that's when she discovered that her husband, now her ex husband, had used 100% of the home equity line. There
Wow.
was no equity in that house that she was now selling. So when she sold out of necessity, she had negative cash flow. Okay. So understanding, and you can do this, simply run your own credit report. Anything that has your name on it will show up on that credit report, joint and your own. Now, of course, you can't run that for your spouse, but you really need to know, if like with the home equity line, if she had just run a credit report, she would have seen that that home equity line that was in both of their names had been used
Mm.
100%. And that
Wow.
made a difference in how she decided to react to that in the divorce process, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So these are financial discovery pieces that you can do before now. You can do those now. You can calculate your own net worth. You can start asking questions. I think that that's such a poignant point, is that when you're in a relationship with someone and you're asking questions and they don't want to divulge the information, that is a red flag. What does someone do with that red flag?
That red flag is an opportunity for further conversation. So if you're in a relationship where your spouse is not willing to divulge the financial well-being of the family, you are basically in a controlling situation and could even be financially abusive.
Yep.
And especially if you don't have access to money, if you
Yep.
don't have access to the bank accounts and you're just given a stipend or you get to use the debit card. So that literally could be considered financial abuse. The thing that I tell people when they're considering divorce, they're not actually in the process at this very moment. They're thinking about it. I say it's time for you to play as your own private investigator and start digging up all of the financial information that you can. Now, any printed materials, that's easy. The thing is, now we get so much electronically that you may not have access to it. Like my husband, if I wanted to know his pay, I would have to have a pay stub, which he would have to go online and get me. But I have every right to know about that. And if he's not willing to give it to me, then I have to pull up my big girl britches and be not afraid of having a conversation with him about why.
Yeah.
Why are you hesitant to educate me on the financial situation? What do I do if you drop dead tomorrow?
Yeah.
I mean, that
Real. That's a
happens.
real deal. It
Right,
does.
absolutely. And those are tough questions. And again, if your spouse isn't willing to have that conversation now, and this is the thing is that, I'm really not even an advocate of, I don't advocate for divorce un-
No.
unless you're in a situation like that. Because this is the thing is that you get to choose whether or not you want to stay in a relationship where you're kept in the dark and someone else is controlling everything. That's your personal choice.
It is a choice.
Mhm.
It is a choice. So many people do not feel like it's a choice, and it is. And I think that's really empowering when they do know it's a choice, then you can make different choices.
Right, absolutely. And I'll tell you, the one that leads me to think of this, the biggest thing that I find on the reason people stay married, oftentimes if they have young children, it's the children. They don't want to disrupt, but I can tell you, and any counselor would tell you, you're doing more damage than good if you stay in a bad marriage with young children. But the bigger fear is, how am I going to do this on my own? And that's where the work that I do as a certified divorce financial analyst comes into play because I can help you dig for all of that financial information. And I even have an exhaustive checklist that says, if you own a business, you need to find these things. If you work for a company that has a pension, you need this, this, and this. So I give you the tools to say, okay, show me all these things. Either they show you or they don't. But
Mm-hmm.
then if you do go down the path of divorce, that's where you give the divorce attorney the list and you say, I've got all these things, but I have no knowledge of this over here. Find out about it. And then it's the attorney's job to get the information from your spouse.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're never going to be making decisions about how to dissolve the marriage and divide the assets if you're advocating for full disclosure of all the assets. That's actually why I started a second business here. I think this is pretty much the case all over, but definitely here in Alabama, people that are divorcing are basically being forced to go to mediation, a
Mm-hmm.
court appointed mediation, before they actually go before a judge. And what happens is these people are being forced into mediation without having full disclosure of all the financial information.
Mm.
So I said, okay, we got to fix this because this is a broken system. You can't push me into negotiations on something where I don't have the information. I don't even know what to ask for. So
Mm-hmm.
that I started the divorce, navigating divorce, the divorce financial mediation, and that's to help partners come together and say we're gonna play like responsible adults. We're going to fully disclose all the financial information, and then we're going to come to an agreement on how we divide the money things based on what's important to us and our family and how we want to nurture our family going forward. Even though it's going to be two separate, parties
Mm-hmm.
now, what do we do that's best going to help these people? So, and even now, if they don't fully mediate the entire divorce through me, they've had the money conversations. They know everything's been disclosed. So they take that memorandum of agreement to their attorneys. Half of the work is done.
Mm-hmm.
So they've saved a ton of money in their divorce, as well as having full disclosure of all the information.
I love that. I know you had said something before we hopped on to do the interview is that you've seen so many women just walk away.
Yes.
Can you speak more about that? And I want you to speak directly to our listeners today because there's someone right now who wants to put their head in the sand, who doesn't want to talk about it, who's scared of having the conversation with a partner, who just wants out. What would you say to that person?
I would say that you deserve so much more. And even if you're exhausted and you feel overwhelmed and just want to be done, you have to dig deep and find the energy and build the right team to help you understand, because once those decisions are made in the divorce process, they cannot be undone. So be smart, be informed, and even if you feel like you just don't have an ounce of energy to go on, there are people like me and counselors, support systems that can help you get through the process. Because this is the reality. Once you're divorced, nothing else matters. I'm going to share one situation with you. I had a woman, and they were very affluent. They weren't, she wasn't going to have to be afraid about how she was going to keep a roof over her head. However, she made a decision because she was ready to be done with the divorce process, and she left a bunch of money on the table. So her husband owned a business, and they had had it appraised probably 4 or 5 years prior to the two of us working together. And at that point, the business was worth about 2.5 million. And now we're fast forward to 2018, so we're several years, 2006 to 2018. I said, I think I would be spending the money, even if you have to pay for it yourself, to have a business valuation done so that you literally know what the business is. Because her husband owned this business
Mm-hmm.
independently, half of that value would be hers in the divorce. Well, because the valuation was going to cost her about $15,000, and she was just fed up of having to
Yeah.
do any of this kind of stuff, she elected not to do it. She ended up getting half of the 2.5 million. Was awarded that asset. However, she found out not 6 months later, when her husband sold his practice
Mm-hmm.
for 6.8 million, how much she left on the table. So
Yeah.
now again, she's had plenty of money. She didn't have to worry about the things you would worry about if you were afraid you didn't have money. But speaking to that end, you know, you you as a human being are worth so much more than money. I see women who have 5 or 6 kids that are earning less than $50,000 a year. And guess what? They're not living my lifestyle, but they are putting food on the table, and they are clothing those children, and they are taking care of them, and they get by. So you can't let the fear of not having enough keep you in a bad relationship that is doing you nor your family any good. It's detrimental to your health and your emotional well being, and you deserve the opportunity to flourish. And you will if you get out of your own way.
You will if you get out of your own way. I think that's a great way to end the show today, Donna. That is so perfectly said. You can do this. To our listeners, I've been through divorce. Donna's been through divorce. Neither of us are advocating for divorce. And if that is what needs to happen for you, one, advocate for yourself.
Yes.
Don't leave money on the table. You can do this. And there are people who care, and there are people who will help you, like Donna, figure it out. If someone wants your help today, Donna, where can they find you?
They can find me at www.moneymattersreal.com. moneymatterswealth.com.
moneymatterswealth.com. Thank you
Correct.
for being on the show today, Donna.
It was my pleasure.
Will you come back?
I would love to.
Okay. We'll have Donna back. Let me know if you have any questions. You can get a hold of me by just simply emailing asklisa@lisachastain.com. And I will be back next week with a brand new guest, brand new topic right here on Real Money. Thank you for joining us. Let us know what you learned. Shout us out on Instagram @Savvy Money with Lisa. And we will talk to you next week. Thanks so much, everyone.